Lindsay Hamilton, aki a Yorki Egyetem kutatója, egyébként etnográfiai végzettségű, de alapvetően interdisziplináris kutatási területeken működik, és az állati szervezettséggel foglalkozik, olyan helyszíneken egyébként, mint a vágóhidak, vagy akár az állatorvosi műtőasztalok világa, vagy az állatkertek, úgyhogy az ő előadása fog következni, amit most lefordítok nem túl frappánsan magyarra, ez pedig úgy látni, mint egy hód, az emberi és állati munka az Anthropocene korában. És akkor ezt most szeretném majd elismételni angol nyelven is, hogyha nemzetközi nézőink is vannak. So thank you again for the wonderful lecture by Professor Chanyi, and I would like to introduce our next plenary speaker, who is Lindsay Hamilton, who works in the University of York, and she's a chair in Animal Organization Studies. Her speech have a title, Seeing Like a Beaver, Human and Animal Work in the Age of Anthropocene. Thank you very much, Lindsay, if you are here. Yeah, I already see you here. So, thank you very much, and the floor is yours now. Thanks.
Thank you. Could you just check that you can see my slide? I think you can.
Yes, we see it from here. From Hungary.
Yeah, I can't hear you now.
Perfect, thank you very much.
We can only see the presenter's view, so not the full screen, but the kind of all the slides and all the options and all the buttons and stuff like that.
No, that's strange because I can see the whole. Oh well, let me see if I can make it better.
So are you So sorry, your purpose is to make it full screen?
Well, I'll make a start. I wanted to talk today about a particular species that I've been researching recently. It's quite important in the United Kingdom because it's part of a reintroduction program. And I think it helps me when I'm thinking about big issues to think about specific animals and how our work relates to those specific animals. But thank you very much for inviting me today. It's fantastic to be here, although virtually, and very much enjoyed looking at the slides and listening to the previous speaker. I thought that was really interesting, and particularly the idea of the biosphere and the kind of planetary level of concern that we have at the moment, which connects quite well to what I want to talk about as well. My name is Lindsay Hamilton, and I've been working in the field of human-animal studies for quite some time, perhaps 12 to 15 years now, and the field that I sort of established, I suppose you might say, is animal organisation studies, because when I started my research career, there really wasn't anything like this in business and management, and I come from a business and management academic background, so organisation studies had not really considered human-animal interactions 15 years ago. All of the scholarship that I noticed that contained like assumed human primacy, human power, and human domination as a standard. And it was taken for granted that we would preserve an Aristotelian or a Descartes-centered view of the hierarchy between humans and animals. within business and management, as though they were objects, resources, part of the background, and not something for consideration as an agent or even a worker. So the work that I started to do was to try and introduce the concept of animals as workers. And my first book in 2013 was Animals at Work. And I thought about how animals could actually be workers, and that's something that I think connects to the beaver in particular, because they are nature's engineers. But let's have a think about today and the challenge that we have today. We've already thought a little bit this morning about the threat, the ecological harm that we are facing at the moment as a species. A lot of people have called this state of ecological harm a polycrisis. And the word polycrisis is starting to be used in academic study of sustainability, particularly. And the polycrisis is a useful term because it describes the interlocking existential threats for humans and nature at the moment in terms of habitat loss, species extinction, pandemics and zoonotic diseases, climate change, and the impacts of global problems for all animals on planet Earth. And this is not a new problem. And in fact, this is the problem that I was trying to think about, albeit less anxiously, perhaps, at the start of my career. I think it's seemed to have sped up somewhat. I think the pace of the concern and the anxiety has really increased in the last few years. And I think we're now presented with a problem that we now need to think in our own disciplines, but also across disciplines, how we as humans, how we as human organizations, including universities, corporations, how can we act well? How can we change how we do things to fix the problems that are caused by humans, human activity, and a lot of the time human commercial activity and business? Now, what we have are some really interesting academic responses to the problem. And over the last 10-15 years, this has really taken off. So these are just a few of the disciplinary areas where you get kind of study that is pointing us towards a response to the polycrisis. So of course we have disciplines like ethology. These have already been working on such problems for quite some time, but more recently we have disciplines emerging from sociology, geography, and philosophy, and they've branched off into these distinctive areas. So there's quite a lot of work going on in human-animal studies, multi-species ethnography, which is an area I'm trying to work on, a methodology of social science to research how we interact with the natural world and other species around us. Critical animal studies, which is on the sort of activist end of the spectrum. There's a whole new discipline of plant ethics and critical plant studies, which is quite novel. And that's emerged quite recently and taken hold a little bit. And in my own business school environment, we've got quite a lot more going on now in a field called Positive Organisational Scholarship, POS, and Business and Society. Now these are labels, of course, but across all these distinct areas, the challenge is the same. So the challenge is that we're living in the age of the Anthropocene, a a time of unprecedented human influence, and yet we constantly seem to refer back to ourselves as the prime mover, the ultimate power in the universe, the people who break everything, but also have the power to fix everything. And this is a bit of a problem and a paradox, because on the one hand, some of the academic responses that we've seen suggest that we're now in an age of post-humanism, that we need to act against the anthropocentric interests and try and position ourselves as part of nature. But there is a reflex within post-humanist theory very often which reinserts the human as the people who can fix the problem. So it's a circular logic quite often. The pragmatic question, really, that we must ask, which is not theoretical, is what can we do? How can we live better? And how can we secure flourishing and thriving for all species? So there are new conversations taking place, and this is a quite nice example of that. It's a recent piece of work in the field of business and society. So it's a field that is concentrating on business ethics, how businesses and commercial enterprises can do better. But Bapuji and Higgins have written that it's timely to hold new conversations that speak to emerging challenges and opportunities that arise as major macro forces collide. I think it's a quite useful way of describing the weighty ethical questions that emerge from the tensions between globalization and deglobalization, growth, degrowth, technology, human, virtual, and physical. So we need to think about the contact points between our own species and the natural world, and to rethink the way that we have an extractive, dominant relationship with nature, and how we impact on the capacity of other animals to thrive.
Excuse me.
This is...
Sorry?
Yes.
I just want to let you know, if you are changing your slides, we cannot see it. If it's still the title page, it's all right, but if the problem is that you have to share your whole screen and not only the presentation.
Okay. Is this better?
Not yet.
Okay, I don't really understand how to make it better. I've got the whole screen on my screen. I tell you what, don't worry about it. I will circulate the slide deck. There's not a great deal of text on the slides. It's mainly photographs.
Okay, so maybe it's easier if you just saying it and just let you know that we cannot see the different slides, but if it's, we can also share yours.
Yes.
You have to tell us when we have to click to the next one, okay? So what do you prefer?
Oh, heck. I think I'll just forget the slides. Would that be okay?
The slides? Okay, okay.
Forget it.
Thank you, thank you.
No problem.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. I think it's my fault. I haven't used this before, and it looks okay from my side. But what I've done is I've created a PDF version of these slides, which I'm able to send around. And also, you have a copy of them, so you might want to just look at them afterwards. As I say, they're mainly just photographs of beavers, so you're not missing out on anything particularly. So if we think about the problem of exploitation and the exploitative relationships that we have between humans, animals and nature, we have to come back to our own relationship with the world, and we need to think about how we can survive, but also how we can help everybody else to thrive. We are in a state of existential crisis, but there are alternatives. And I've talked about some of the approaches that are currently being taken in academia. But we don't have to think about just academia. There are also indigenous knowledges, which to some extent might have been forgotten. And there's been some really interesting research recently about, for example, the way that humans used to track animals and how that could be used as a research method to think about how we could live better with other species. I won't go into detail about that, but Harry Wells and Franz Kamstig talk about the tracking technologies of African tribespeople and think about that as a template for the way that they are doing ethnography with other species. So there are lots of paradigms and ways that we can think about our relationship to the world, whether we're doing academic study or just trying to live better. And to bring this to life, I'd like to switch over now to thinking about beavers in more detail. And the reason I selected this species is because they are nature's engineers, if you like. And they are a charismatic species. Now, the word charisma is an old word, of course, but it's used by animal geographers, particularly to talk about the attractive nature of particular species. A target species is sometimes one that we are attracted to, that we're drawn to, and there's something special about them. And beavers fall into this category. They're special and attractive because they're quite rare. In the United Kingdom, they were hunted to extinction many years ago, centuries ago, and they were used by people. They were extracted, and they were turned into hats and coats and fur accessories. And in recent times, it's become clear that they actually could have a role to play in helping avoid flooding, which is obviously part of the polycrisis of climate change. In the UK particularly, flooding is a serious problem every winter time, and it impacts on human lives. So there are important problems to be solved for businesses, but also for people just going about their daily lives. What beavers do, obviously, as nature's engineers, is that they completely transform aquatic habitats. And they fell trees, they move trees, they create dams, they change the course of rivers and streams, and they produce a different environment in which water can flow at a much slower pace and has a positive impact. So there's been quite a few attempts to reintroduce them into the natural world, and oddly, they've also appeared just outside of my house. I live in an area which has 2 lakes, and it's not far away from my back door. And I don't know exactly who's done this, but some environmental activists have bought a family of beavers to live in my village. And I just realised that everything looked different. I was going running, and I noticed that the streams and the rivers looked completely different, clean and fresh, and the water was flowing better. And it was only by talking to some of the people that live locally that they said, oh yeah, shh, don't tell anybody, but somebody bought some beavers and they've settled here and everything's improving and changing. So I thought there's something here to think about. And the impact they're having is a very positive one. So actually, in my neighbourhood, people are very happy about this species coming back. So they are charismatic, they're very unusual. And Jamie Lorimer talks about charisma. He's based at Oxford University, and I had the pleasure of meeting him in the summer when I went to the Animal Ethics Summer School at Merton College, Oxford. We talked about this. But what I like about beavers is that they live in their own taskscape. And a taskscape is an anthropological concept that Tim gave to us back in the 1990s. And a taskscape is how a body moves through time and space doing work effectively. So the taskscape of the beaver is about felling trees, moving trees, creating dams, and diverting watercourses, and harvesting particular plants. And how they see the world is through the taskscape, in my opinion. I'm not an ethologist, but I think that this is a good surmise of how they go about their world. They are connected sensorially to their world. Their work is their body. The way they see the world is through their work. There is no disconnect, in my opinion, between the way they go about their business and the everyday bodily affordances that they have. Now, that's in contrast to the way that the human animal would approach, for example, a watercourse or a forest. We, as a species, might see a paper mill or the potential to create fence panels or wooden, sheds and buildings. We see resource extraction as a future strategy, whereas the beaver seems to see things in a different way, as an extension of the body, an immediate sensory capacity through which to exercise their real bodily affordances. So how they see the world is rather different from us. And I think this is the point of learning for me. And this is what I want to develop in my next part of the research. Because I think if we're going to respond to the Anthropocene, the potential for the polycrisis to completely unravel our species and to make it so difficult for us to live well that we're going to have to change everything completely. I think we need to have some oneness with the way that the beaver sees the world. So to the extent that we can learn from this, I'd like to reflect on the important contributions that people like Donna Haraway have made to our disciplines, and think about not having such a disconnect, a humanistic disconnect between us and nature. To see ourselves rather as embedded within nature, at one with nature, and not looking out for the extractive potential of, for example, woodland and watercourses as capitalistic modes of extraction and potential, but rather thinking about our place as one in which we are taking what we need, making use of what we have, maybe thinking about how we can improve our immediate environment by improving the ecological systems for all species. And I think, although that might sound quite simplistic, I think if commercial enterprises particularly would be more able to detach themselves from their extractive capitalistic modes of searching for profit, searching for nature as a resource, seeing other animals as a resource or an object to be used, we might be able to soften our impact on the environment and hopefully to live in a space of flourishing for all. And that's one step beyond sustainability. And I think sustainability is a difficult term because it suggests that we can carry on doing what we're doing if we just take a bit more care. I think we need to move beyond sustainability. We don't want to keep the status quo, potentially, but we need to think about thriving and flourishing for all species on Earth, because actually that's not only important to our own existence as a species and planetary welfare within the biosphere, but also the impact that we have on other species and their ability to thrive and to live out their stories and their biological needs in harmony with the environment in which they live. So I think we need to adjust our mindset from one in which we see the human species as the top species, the species that has the ability to fix all the problems around us, to take control, to reverse the signs of the polycrisis. I think we need to be quite modest and gentle, and I think we could also learn from the animal kingdom to see how they approach the natural world, to see like a beaver, not to put ourselves at a distance from the world in which we are inhabiting, but as part of it, and a part of it in which we're not looking out for the potential to extract, but looking for ways to live in harmony with other creatures. I'll stop there, I think, and I do apologise about the lack of slides, but what I'll do, I will send those to you and you can have a look at your leisure. As I say, they're mainly photographs, but I have included some of the key points, and maybe that will give you some idea about the sort of things I'm thinking about. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask, please feel free to contact me at my York email address. I'm more than happy to enter into conversations about what I've talked about, and perhaps you've got experiences yourself that you'd like to share about beavers, but about any other species too. I'm quite interested to know what other people are working on, and I'll hand the floor back now to my hosts and look forward to the next speaker, and thank you so very much for your attention and patience. Thank you.
So, do you hear me, Lindsay? Yeah, cool. So, thank you very much for this wonderful presentation on beavers and on our whole existence, actually. So, as I see, there is a question, and I'm just looking at the organizers because I think we have some time, no? I mean, one question? Okay, so among those who are in online, I saw the hand sign, and let's just start to ask the question. I don't know who was that. Or not? Okay. Check. Okay. I just cannot make it somehow. Oh, somebody just clapped.
I'll take
Oh,
that.
thanks God.
Thank you very much.
Okay, then, thank you very much, Lindsay, and I hope that we can do some future cooperation together under the umbrella of anthrozoology and this whole stuff. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much.
Bye. Nem akarok mindenkit lekapcsolni.
És hát azt gondolom, hogy fölmerült, hogy kérdések merülhetnének föl, és nem adtuk meg a szót ilyen tekintetben professzor úrnak, tehát esetleg valaki szeretne kérdezni Csányi Vilmos professzor úrtól, akkor most meg tudja tenni esetleg ezt. Ezek szerint nem. Jó.
Hát esetleg csak annyit, hogy mi a jövő, és milyen aktuális kutatásokról esetleg professzor úr, hát ugye elmondta ezt a 25-ös tanulmány, felhívta rá a figyelmünket, de hova fejlődhet ez tovább? Milyen további kutatási tervek vannak, amiről esetleg lehet tudni valamit?
Nem olyan régután
Felmennek a volt, és nem veszik ezt, és hogy hallja a világ.
Igen, köszönöm szépen. Abban a cikkben, amit ajánlok elolvasni, az világos, hogy a néhány év alatt a kutyákról kiderült, hogy nem csak viselkedésben, hanem öregedés kutatásban, különböző betegségek vizsgálatában, szociális kérdések vizsgálatában nagyon alkalmas modelljei az emberi kutatásnak, mert ugye rövidebb, illetve gyorsabban zajlanak az állunk a folyamat. Megjelent egy olasz cikk évvel ezelőtt, ahol kicsit csodálkoznak, hogy 2009 óta hirtelen elszabadultak a kutyás cikkek, és exponenciális sebességgel nő a számuk. Még nem jöttek rá, hogy onnan indultak, de minden esetre nagyon intenzív kutatások indultak, főleg a kutyák öregedésével kapcsolatban, mert ott egy az egyben lehet az emberi öregedés vizsgálatánál használni. De ugyanígy lehet használni a nyelv kialakulásának a vizsgálatára is. Ugye a munkatársaim, akik hát voltak munkatársaim, rájöttek, hogy ugye meg lehet, nem csak azt lehet megvizsgálni, hogy a szavakat értik el a kutyák, vagy intonációt. Annyit Attila az igazolta, hogy a szavakat is külön tárolják és megértik. Ma már tovább mentek ezek a vizsgálatok, és a szótagokat is megértik. Tehát a szótagokat is külön tárolják, vagyis rendkívül előre haladottak a nyelv megértésének a folyamatában. Ez egy rendkívül izgalmas kérdés, és ez megint az emberi nyelvek megértéséhez is vezet, hiszen 6000 nyelv van, és csak 3 biológiai tulajdonságon alapszanak, a többi kultúra. Úgyhogy egy egészen széles társadalmi körű vizsgálatot tesznek lehetővé ezek a kutyavizsgálatok, mindenkit biztatok ilyesmikre.
Köszönjük szépen!
Köszönjük szépen, és akkor ugye ez a délelőtti plenáris szekció véget ért. Mindenkit szeretettel várunk 1 órakor az ebédszünet után, de akkor már 3 szekcióban fog zajlani a konferenciánk. Itt lesz az első szekció, egyes szekció, a 2-es a másik épület földszinti előadójában, és egy angol nyelvű szekció átes teremben, ami szintén ott van a földszinti előadó mellett. Tehát ezeken a helyeken várunk